What is going on, guys? JC Needed here. And apparently, I don't know if you've all heard of something called quiet quitting, where people just quietly quit their jobs. They don't give notice. They don't give you a heads up. They don't give you any indication that they're thinking of moving on. And then one day, all of a sudden, poof, they leave. And actually, quiet quitting also involves people who just start to do the minimum amount of work just to get by. So, with that being said, there's something now I heard of called quiet layoffs. Let's find out what that's about.
Is return to office just quiet layoffs in disguise? So, first of all, what's a quiet layoff? Well, a lot of people are saying that all of these companies that are making people return to the office when they've had really good success the last 3 years of working from home are just doing it so that they can get people to be like, I moved to Montana because you said we were always going to be remote and my lifestyle is way cheaper here and I'm not returning to the office. So they know that those people will quit. It's a lot cheaper for companies to do that than for the company to bring the people in, give them severance, a week of pay for each year that they were there, all that kind of stuff, give them a package to be able to transition them out without getting any lawsuits or any trouble. So companies have started to use this tactic of saying people have got to come back. Now, it doesn't mean that every single company that is having people return to office is doing it for this kind of nefarious reason. But I mean, employees are not so innocent in this either. We also had employees really quiet quitting on companies throughout all this time. And there's some good reasons for that and some bad reasons for that too. That's another video. But here today, when we're talking about quiet layoffs, this is absolutely happening. And you can know when it's happening because there's a difference between a company that is struggling and the numbers aren't good and they're not having innovation and not having new products and not having new ideas and they're not moving forward. So they want to get people back together. That's a good reason to have return to office. Or smarter, if you want to have it really good for recruiting for your company, to have hybrid. But companies that are doing this whose stock price is absolutely soaring and they're still having record quarters ever since COVID came, there's no good reason for this. There's no good reason to have return to office when the numbers are doing terrifically. So really, I mean, you have to look at it and try to figure out which is which. I want to know if you guys have experienced this. Have you experienced the quiet layoffs of being returned to office when the company is doing great, only to sit in your office to have a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting with people that are just down the hall and you never get together anyway? So companies don't do this. If you're going to bring people back, actually have them integrate. Don't just have them sit in their office just to do a online meeting anyway, so there's no reason for people to be back together. It makes absolutely no sense. Let people get rid of their commute. Let them take their kids to school. Let them be able to throw a load of laundry in on the lunch. This is silly. If the company's doing great, don't make people come back. If the company is struggling and it makes sense financially, then I understand bringing them back. Let me know your thoughts.
Okay, I'll let you know my thoughts. So I like the fact that he's taking a balanced approach when, thinking about this whole idea that if a company is struggling and they need to bring people together to collaborate and to innovate internally, that it's a good idea to bring them back to the office. I can agree with that. I don't think that's such a bad thing. Let me know what you think. I'll let him know what I think. But the other side he's saying is that companies that are doing very well, stock prices are soaring, technological advancements are through the roof. Why are they bringing people back? And he's saying that they're doing it for nefarious reasons to lay people off. And if they're making so much money, why would they be so intent on laying people off, you would ask? My hunch is that, a lot of these companies, again, a lot of these big companies we talk about tend to be tech-heavy companies or finance companies, but nonetheless, mostly tech-heavy. And so, like for example, Amazon's bringing a lot of people back. I think what other companies are bringing people back besides Amazon? I think Apple, I think Google, these big tech companies. I think they're doing it because maybe they're having this situation where because of technological advancements and efficiency, i.e. AI, for example, that they don't need as many staff. Also, they probably overhired during COVID. And so now they're trying to find a way to cut people. And the one way to do it is to force them back to the office. Right after COVID and during COVID, employees had more of the leverage, right? So they were doing stuff like quiet quitting. And so companies just had to put up with it. And companies were fighting for these employees and they were hiring like crazy. And now that things have changed and the economy's flipped, now the employers have much more leverage. Again, I mean, they always have leverage, obviously. They're the ones doing the hiring. But, now there's a flood of potential candidates. They're not searching for top talent. Well, now they got to trim the fat. So forcing people back to the office could be a way to do that. Quiet layoffs. Let's continue.
Dell is the latest company to announce workers must return to the office 5 days a week if they live within 1 hour's drive of a Dell office location. Some say this is just an effort to lower the headcount from 120,000 employees back down to under 100,000 so Dell can focus more on their AI strategy. I sure hope not. I think that businesses would benefit from being honest with employees and not pulling the wool over their eyes, making it seem like it's really about return to office if they just want to do a round of layoffs. Just do the layoffs. I think the other thing this Dell announcement really brings up is the fact that most businesses are very short term, that so many businesses are still paying the price for the policies they embraced during COVID that just weren't sustainable. And I think it just goes to show that most companies cannot think long term, could not even see or predict how difficult it would be to make these adjustments during COVID and then reel them back in as years go by and those strategies aren't working anymore. I think that employers should actually pay employees a little bit extra for their 1 hour drive into work. Why not incentivize people? That should be part of their workday, like literally driving to work. They should be paid hourly for that. Maybe not the same, but I think that would really fix it.
Once again, really good points. First thing is this whole idea about them not wanting to risk bad press. And so instead of doing a round of layoffs, they're implementing the return to office for employees within 1 hour's drive to kind of get those people to quit. Listen, it seems a bit arbitrary. Not arbitrary. I mean, I get it. If you live within an hour's drive, okay, your commute won't be as bad as someone who lives 2, 3 hours, a whole other state away. But why are you penalizing those folks who live an hour away versus those folks who live, let's say, in another state? Let's say that you have a super great performer that lives an hour away, and you have a bunch of performers that are not doing that well, and they live states away. Why would you keep the lower performers and penalize the higher performers? Doesn't make any sense, which leads credence to the idea that they're just doing this as a quick measure to cut people. They're not putting much thought into it. They're cutting people, which leads into the second part you're talking about things being short term with these companies. I think she's on point. During COVID, there was a drastic, I mean, honestly speaking, a lot of us had our heads spinning during COVID. So even these companies they did not know what to do exactly. Everyone was unsure what the future looked like. At the same time, though, to do all this over hiring and to shift things temporarily just for COVID to go away, I mean, for the most part, and now have to backtrack and do all these types of quiet layoff maneuvers seems a bit, it's not the best thing in the world. The last thing she's talking about is incentivizing people to come back to the office. I mean, that's actually not a bad idea. Okay. That's one of the biggest benefits of working from home is not that people don't necessarily want to be in the office, which some people don't, but it's not really that. It's all the things that go with it. It's the commute. It's having to choose what to wear and spend more on clothes, spend more on food. Because when you're going to the office, you can try to cook your food ahead of time, but a lot of times you're eating out. It's being unable to quickly schedule appointments to go to the doctor or drop some laundry, like the first guy said, into the washer while you're working and get right back to work. So it's these little things that add up that working from home helps you out. So if they did offer more to go into the office, that would be a good incentive because going to the office is effectively a pay cut, which I think the next video is going to get into. Because going to the office costs a lot more than working from home. So let's see.
Return to office mandates are effectively a form of a pay cut. Now, why might that be? Economists at Stanford have estimated that workers value the ability to work from home at least part of the time at around 8% of their pay, which for context, for the typical worker, that's about $5,000. A number of companies have recently announced return to office mandates. And one way to interpret all of this is that it's effectively a backdoor layoff. The companies themselves, for the most part, deny this. They say this is not about reducing headcount. This is about productivity, mentoring workers, or improving a corporate culture, all of that. But there's a reason to think that even if that's not their stated goal, it will be an effect. And in fact, the Department of Government Efficiency explicitly said that their goal in requiring federal workers to come to the office full time is that there will be a wave of voluntary terminations. Now, the question is, will the right people leave? The evidence suggests that it's more likely to be women, it's more likely to be senior workers, and it's more likely to be your most skilled workers who depart in the wake of a return to office mandate. Workers are still fighting back, obviously, but the labor market has softened a lot. Unemployment has gone up, hiring has slowed quite a bit. Now, employers feel emboldened to be able to effectively cut workers' compensation by calling them back to the office.
I think she's hit all the points nicely. Number one, return to office. A lot of times you're penalizing those high performers, and a lot of those high performers will leave. They'll dip out, they'll go find work elsewhere. But Again, it's an employer market now. It's not an employee market because, as she mentioned, the unemployment rate is high, interest rates are high, the new job postings available are low. And so now there's a lot more competition for these fully remote jobs amongst these high performers, so that some people don't have the choice but to go back into the office. So effectively, companies are going to save money one way or another. They're going to get you to quit, which reduces headcount, which saves them money, or they can, as she said, create pay cuts, or the new jobs they're posting online are for lower amounts of money than the ones that were previously posted back when it was more of an employee market. This is kind of the ebb and flow of how things work. Sometimes, it benefits the employee more than the employer. Sometimes it's the vice versa. But I do think that the federal government and DOJ stating that one of the intended goals of these return to office mandates is to have voluntary terminations is definitely something that these private companies are also paying attention to and using themselves. They're not gonna come out and say it like the federal government is, because they want to make sure they keep a brand image. They have a brand image to uphold. They don't want to make themselves look bad. But let's all be honest, it probably is at least, if not first, second, third at least, in their line of what they're trying to accomplish with these return to office mandates, especially when this is arbitrarily applied. Like if you're an hour away, come back in. Otherwise, you can keep working from home. I mean, let's keep it honest. And like she said too, unfortunately, they're kind of doing this sweepingly. Like, okay, if you're an hour away, you're gone, or you have to come back in, and that may affect people who, or let's put it this way, people that are maybe not able to return to work, maybe people who have adjusted their life because they have kids, which, like she mentioned, may more or less, maybe like more likely be the women that are home watching the kids that now have to decide between, do I go back into the office and pay childcare or figure out what to do with this childcare, or do I lose my job, or do I quit, or senior citizens. So, it's just unfortunate, but I do think that this return to office push is effectively, in a sense, a quiet layoff for a lot of these companies. So let me know in the comment section what you think. Do you think that all this return to office mandate stuff going on is essentially companies implementing quiet layoffs? Or do you think there's another reason for it, such as collaboration and efficiency and mentoring new employees and things of that nature? Let me know what you think in the comment section. If you made this fun video, I really appreciate it. Feel free to give the video a like and to subscribe if you feel so too inclined. And until next time, make smart financial decisions.